I'm Mark Lowry, Director of Sandyford Business District, and I'll be your host for today's webinar. It's great to see so many of you log on and attend our webinar this morning. We'll be taking questions, so please post them during the event using the question tool at the bottom of your screen, and we'll address them during the webinar. As always, where you have a particular challenge that you need support or help with, you can of course contact any of the Sandyford Business District team directly or our panelist. So we're now joined by our expert contributor, Jenny Branigan, a chartered physiotherapist and owner of Total Physio here in Sandyford Business District. Jenny is a former physiotherapist to the Irish women's national football team, and we'll ask a couple of questions about that maybe later, and is also a certified Pilates instructor and features regularly in the media. So we're delighted to have her on our webinar this morning. Good morning and welcome, Jenny.
Hello, Mark. It's great to be here.
Just a reminder to everybody, don't forget to post your questions. Jenny, how are you and your business managing the challenge of operating during this period?
Well, I think like everybody else, we've had to completely and very quickly change how we operate. Being such a face-to-face business, obviously it became clear in March that that was going to be an issue. So we have moved completely online now, and we're conducting our physiotherapy sessions online. So I mean, we're working as normal as much as we possibly can. Patients will still get injured during COVID-19, and they certainly are, as we'll talk about later in the webinar. But we had to figure out a way to try and make sure that we could still reassure people, we could still get to them when they're in acute pain, so that not only would they have this, they wouldn't have to just deal with the stress of being at home and the kids off school and maybe trying to figure out their own financials. We wanted to try and at least take the pain out of the equation for them. So it's actually been working very well. We're very surprised that it's worked so well, in fact, and we're 8 weeks into it now at this stage. So all of our consultations are now online. We're also teaching some Pilates classes online. And we're seeing some really interesting patterns emerging in terms of the types of injuries. So pandemic injuries that, again, I'm going to talk about a little bit later on. But I'm really, really pleasantly surprised at how well it's working, because a lot of our business is really about reassurance and education and showing people how they can move. And in fact, it's really well received over a screen.
It's really brilliant to see how you can pivot so easily, or looks like it's easy, from in a business where physical contact would have seemed to be core to your business model.
Yeah, well, absolutely. I mean, I guess when you're faced with no choice, you have to do something, right? So it was either that or we were just doing nothing. So it's amazing how something like this has certainly focused the mind. And prior to this, it's something that we hadn't really even considered doing. But I think actually once we all return to some sort of normality, I think that the online consultations will actually continue to be a feature of our business going forward. And 6 months ago, I never would have said that.
And is there an appetite from individual clients then to maintain their routine? And are they maintaining their routine despite not having that physical contact?
Well, yes. I mean, look, people are trying to keep as much routine as possible, because that's a way that you can manage through anything that's uncertain. And certainly with this, it's the most uncertain time we've ever all had to deal with as regards, the risk to our health, the risk to our family's health, and of course the financial risk that everybody's facing. So when there's all of these uncertainties to deal with, I think having some manner of routine and trying to set out a plan for your day or for your week, that really helps us. We really are creatures of habit. So being able to do that is very helpful. But again, depending on how organized you are, or the available equipment that you have, or even, the level of childcare you're having to provide, depending on the age of your kids, there are lots of variables in there that are complicating it. So what I'm going to try and talk about today is just how to try and manage the physical sides of it, so that we can minimize the amount of people that are actually developing pain and injury as a result of this. But then also some of the things about routine and how that can help you from a mental side, just to try and settle yourself and gain a little bit more control over an uncertain situation.
Excellent. And you've kindly prepared some really good slides to share with our people on the webinar this morning. You might take us through if I have an injury, or how do I know I have an injury?
Okay, well, yeah. Well, do you want to start maybe talking about working from home first? Because that's kind of the flow of the
Sure.
slides, and we can work through that then so people can follow that. So. Sure. I guess people have been working from home now and, you know, less than ideal ergonomic situations and conditions. And again, everybody's situation is going to be different. Some people that I've spoken to have been lucky enough that they've been able to go into their office and bring home their ergonomically sound chairs, their footrests, you know, maybe, you know, laptop stands, things like that. And then other people haven't been in the lucky position to be able to do that. So, you know, some of the people that I've dealt with during this recent crisis, they've been needing...
Jenny, you're
Hello?
breaking up slightly there, Jenny. You're breaking up very slightly there, Jenny. You might just readjust your microphone,
Okay.
and then you can continue.
Can you hear me now, Mark?
Yeah, it's still a bit bubbly. I think it might be your internet connection, but let's not worry. Let's rock on.
Okay, so it's some of the examples of people I've been dealing with during the crisis and who've been phoning then for appointments based on pain they're developing would include this guy that was working on his laptop from the top of his ironing board.
Jenny, we're losing you there. You might...
Hello, Mark?
Yeah, I was missing you. I just missed you there. I understand from people, it's me that you're losing. So look, I'm going to let you go on.
Okay, so there was a patient that I was dealing with during the week, and his main problem was that he was working off the top of his ironing board because all the other tables in his house were taken. His kids were working in their bedrooms, his wife had commandeered the kitchen table, and he was trying to work, you know, 8-9 hours a day from his ironing board. I had another person on who was working from her laptop in her bed, on her bed, trying to keep a 1-year-old quiet because her spouse was working from the kitchen table and he was dialing into meetings, you know, global meetings all over the world. So she was trying to manage her baby at the same time as working herself while her husband is working. So you can imagine the stress of that, as well as the positioning of trying to sit with your laptop on your knee. One big thing that we're noticing is that people who are normally used to a commute, so walking to work, maybe walking to the Lewis, maybe cycling to the office, and now that they're working from home, they're missing out on that commute. They're not getting their daily walk, their daily movement in before they sit at their desk for the day. So now they're just moving from their bed into their home office, and because they've nowhere to go because of the restrictions, they're staying there all day. So no walk outside to get a coffee, no walk out to grab your lunch or walk and talk with a colleague like before. And then I had a patient in that circumstance and he picked up a towel off the floor and next thing his back seized and he was stuck in a forward bent position. So we're seeing lots of these patterns of injuries, and a lot of it is just based on this sitting for too long, infrequent breaks with nowhere to go. So they're staying at their desk. And of course, they're not then able to move in the same nice free way because they're developing stiffness and pain in their necks, their backs, the upper back and the lower back, into the shoulders, even referring pain down into the arms and into the wrists. Some people have been developing even pins and needles. So this repetitive strain injury style pattern. And it's something that we're seeing very commonly now. So if you want to move on to the next slide, then I've gone through some tips. So on the basic ergonomics that you need to consider. So the biggest thing that I would say to anybody listening here is that you must make sure you work on your laptop to make sure that it's at the right height for you from a monitor point of view and from a keyboard point of view. And the difficulty with a laptop is because they are joined, you must make sure you have a separate keyboard and a mouse. So raise your laptop up on several books. If you have a stand, great. If you have one in the office that you can pick up, great. If you don't, stick it up on a few books so that the monitor is at your eye level. That's really very important. And a separate keyboard and a mouse will then allow you to keep your arms in the right position so you're not straining your shoulders and you're not putting too much pressure through your elbow and your forearms. It's important to make sure your monitor is approximately 18 to 24 inches away from your eye line. So if it's too close to you, you're going to hunch up and you'll tense your shoulders. If it's too far away from you, you're going to actually bring your head forward. It's like a magnet, the screen, bringing your head forward towards it, and you'll end up with this forward head poking posture, which strains the back of the neck and the upper spine. If you look at the picture that's on your screen right now, you'll see, and in fact, the seat should even be higher in that picture. So I just want to highlight that. Ideally, you want a seat back that actually comes right up to the back of your head so that you can rest the back of your head into that seat back. And if it's an adjustable seat that pushes back, you can actually press back into the seat, and that allows you to use your muscles. It improves your circulation and it gives you some small amount of movement even while you're in your chair. Obviously, good lumbar support, we're all very aware of that now. We have those in our cars now. Most good office chairs will have a good lumbar support. If you don't have a decent office chair, get a rolled up towel, little hand towel, roll it into a cylinder and stick it into the small of your back to maintain that normal curve. So very easy to do that when you're in the home environment. Look at a seat that has adjustability. You want to make sure you're not too low for the desk you're at, and you want to make sure you're not too high. I had a patient during the week and she told me that she has a brilliant home office setup in the front room in her house, but it's far too cold, so she doesn't like to sit there. So instead she's sitting on a high stool at her island in her kitchen. So of course she was on to me with back pain. So, think about the spaces that you have. We've encouraged this lady now to move her home office setup out into the kitchen. So it's a room that she wants to sit in because she's going to be there for the next 7 or 8 weeks or possibly longer. So, think about these things. A lot of this is common sense, but because we've had to make such a quick adjustment, these things get sort of pushed back. If you're at work and you were talking to your health and safety officer, ring that person now that you're home and see if they can help you to deal with some of these ergonomic issues from home. Because the better position that you're in, the less likely you are going to need to speak to me. As regards your laptop, never work on the laptop with it on your knee. It's straight away a position that's going to cause you to hunch over, which puts pressure on your upper spine. You've no back support in that position, which is going to strain your lower back or your lumbar spine. It brings into play this forward head posture, so your chin pokes forward, and again, you're rounding your shoulders, you're causing neck strain. If it's on your knee, again, you might even be able to see it properly, so you can be causing strain to your eyes as well. So it's very important when you're working with a laptop that you don't work with it on your knee, that you don't work from your bed with it on your lap. And again, you make sure the key point on this ergonomics slide is to make sure that your laptop is raised up and you use a separate keyboard and a mouse. Okay, so then moving on, if you want to think about other ways that you can try and ease your physical aches during the day. The first thing I would say is to replicate that usual commute. I mentioned that already. If you're used to walking or cycling to your office, you need to replicate that now that you're walking from home. Your body is used to this and it needs it. And don't just do it in the morning. Make sure you do it in the evening when you've finished work as well. So straight away, you're building in some exercise into your day. The weather's been fantastic, so you're getting the reassurance of being out in the sun, a nice bit of fresh air. You can settle your mind and get yourself prepared for the day ahead. Make sure that you set reminders to get up from your sitting position every 30 minutes. Now that we're at home and we don't have a reason to go out so much as when we did when we were in the office, it's important that you set those reminders now so that you don't end up just sitting there for 3 or 4 hours before you go to move. So an easy way to do that is to drink lots of water. Don't bring in a big 2-litre jug with you to your desk. Just have 1 glass of water, and every time you've finished it, go back to the kitchen, fill it up again. That will make you move. You get out of your seat, you break that cycle of sitting, you get more water, and then you come back in. So you've gained a few steps there. You're also going to have the fact that you'll need to go to the bathroom. So again, that's another reason for you to have to get up when you're drinking this water throughout the day. One of the luxuries of being in work is that you potentially have a bathroom on a different floor, or you have to walk to go to the bathroom. That's not necessarily the same when you're at home if you're in an apartment, for example. So try, if you can, to use the stairs before you use the bathroom. So if you're in an apartment, run out, run down 2 stories, come back up and go to the bathroom if you can. If you're in a house and you have a bathroom upstairs and you're working from downstairs, run up those stairs to the bathroom. So any way to build in a little bit of extra movement to break that cycle of sitting. Very easy, but actually these are the easy things that people forget to do.
Can I just ask a quick question, Jenny, then? So there's a lot of people working from home, incessant Zoom calls, conference calls. They may not have access to that ideal ergonomic environment that you've sort of outlined there. They might be at the kitchen table, having to sit on the bed, working all sorts of weird and wonderful hours to manage distractions of home life.
Yeah.
So what can we do to maybe help in those circumstances where maybe you don't have the ideal environment?
Well, you do really need to look at what you have. So most people will have an area where they eat their breakfast, where they have their meals. So what you need to do is you need to look at that table that you have and you need to try and set that up in the best way. Now, that is difficult if you have kids. If you're setting yourself up for a few hours and then you have to clear the table for everyone to have their lunch or to have their dinner, that makes it more challenging. If you have a separate desk, you need to try and set that up so that every day you're not having to just get in and work from the start without managing to set yourself up right. So if you can section off a particular area that is your workstation and try and set that up in the best way, like I spoke about with your laptop and your separate keyboard, and again trying to adhere to that picture that I showed you there where you have a seat with a good back, you have adjustability, and again you don't have things stuck in underneath your desk so your legs are cramped. you need to think about the fact that this is going to go on for many more weeks. So the best position that you can set yourself up in, so that every day you're repeating in the best way that you can, that's going to minimize your chance of physical aching, but also it's going to minimize the stress on your body, because you're not just trying to catch snippets of time here and there and just, catch half an hour on your knee with your laptop. You're going into a workstation so that you're able to think, right now I'm at work, compared to, obviously the luxury of being able to go into your office and you can say, right, homework is finished, now I'm going into the office. You need to be able to try and separate that and have that boundary at home, ideally as well.
So be conscious, set yourself up the best way you possibly can. And if you have to, contact your health and safety or
If you have the
manager in
luxury of a
your
health and
job.
safety
Yeah.
person in the job, absolutely give them a ring and see what suggestions they will have. And again, a lot of companies are being very good at the moment, and they're actually trying to support their employees through this with the proper ergonomic assessments, of course, and ergonomic equipment. So that is very important. And it's one thing to work from home for one day a week and have a setup that's less than ideal. But if you're working from home every single day for the past 8 weeks, and now for another 8 or 10 or 12 weeks, or however long it's going to take to get back to normal office work, certainly it's very important that you take the time to actually minimize the stress on your body and make sure that you're setting up the most ideal ergonomic setup that you can.
Excellent. So now tips for coping from working from home.
Okay, so I'd also like to just mention before we go on to this that movement breaks are very important, and scheduling in a movement break, like you'd have your 11s or like you'd maybe have a cup of coffee at 3 o'clock in the day. I want you also to think about moving well during those times. So choose some easy moves. They don't have to be anything too exotic. You can literally do 10 lunges or 15 squats or marching on the spot, going up and down on your toes. It doesn't have to be anything that's too dramatic. It's literally movement. So if you spend a minute or two, a couple of times a day like that, just doing some easy moves, you'll improve your circulation. You'll actually break that cycle of sitting. And that's really, really key to making you feel more comfortable. And it also makes you feel better during the day. So any anxiety that you're feeling, if you're feeling stressed and tense through your body and through your back, those types of movements will help to reduce that. So it's a really nice way to just try and minimize that stress on your body. If somebody phones you, walk up and down the room as you take that phone call. Again, you'll build up the steps very quickly if you start to make that a good habit. I know we're on Zoom a lot these days, and I never heard of Zoom in January, and look at this now, we're on Zoom every day. But phone calls also are a great opportunity to get you up from your desk and to get you walking up and down. Okay, so if we move on then to talking about trying to cope with working from home, and not just the physical side of it, but the uncertainty of it, and again the fact that you're at home and you're trying to manage kids outside and you're trying to think, how am I going to get in and make them their lunch and all that kind of stuff. Really what you need to think about is setting a good routine. So the first thing you need to do at the start of every day is get up, get yourself dressed, and get yourself prepared for the day ahead. If you're going, from your bed in your pajamas and then you're sitting at your workstation, just because people aren't looking at you on a Zoom call, it's no reason not to get yourself up and actually set yourself up for the day, putting on a clean t-shirt or a clean shirt and making sure you brush your hair and get ready to go. Because actually you'll feel better if you're ready for the day. So getting up and out as if you were going to the office. And again, you're trying to set that boundary between being at home and being in your work setup. So being in your workstation in your pajamas, you're blurring the boundaries there. So get up, get dressed, get in a walk before work. You're replicating your commute, you're getting out into the fresh air, and you're setting yourself up for a good day. The routine of everything, again, is key at the moment. It's something we can control in these uncertain times. So set a work start time and set a work finish time and try and stick to those. Now, of course, there will be times when you have to work earlier or late and emergencies crop up. And of course, that's fair enough. But if you try and keep yourself, again, fairly disciplined in setting these starting and finish times and setting lunch times so that you know what your day is going to hold. And again, you're able to control the things that you can control. That will certainly help from the point of view of people feeling unsure and uncertain about how things will unfold in the bigger picture. At least you're controlling and managing what you can control at home. Stick to your usual bedtime. It's very tempting to watch another episode and another episode of all of these brilliant box sets or watching Netflix at the moment, but try and stick to a usual bedtime during the week so that you're waking at the same time. A lot of people are reporting that they're becoming very nocturnal at the moment. They're staying up to watch till 1 or 2 in the morning because they don't have to get up and be up and smart and dressed in the office at 8:30 or 9 now. So again, try and stick to that routine of your usual bedtime and waking time to keep that bit of discipline and routine in your week. One very good point is to turn off your computer when you're finished for the day. If you've the luxury of having a separate workstation, you can close that door and that's great. But if you've got your computer on your kitchen table, it's very tempting when it's still on, when you see an email flash up, to just go and check that, maybe at 7 in the evening. If you turn off your computer, you won't be alerted to these. Equally, if you've got a work phone, put that away once you've decided on your finished time for the day. Don't be tempted to keep going back, because then you blur the lines between home life and work life. And again, that adds stress to your body because you feel like you're working all the time and you're never getting a break. If you're at home, if you're isolated, if you're living by yourself and you're not in your office, make an effort to talk on the phone to your colleagues rather than emailing them. Again, it's very important in these times that we stay connected. And it's one thing to email somebody, you'll get the information you need. But if you speak to them on the phone, you will actually hear how they are, you get a better connection, you might hear a little bit of gossip, which is what we all love, and that keeps us all connected in a nice way. And that's certainly what we're all missing from being in our offices. But talking on the phone, if you're at home and you're not meeting people as usual, is a very good way of keeping you connected to the world. And that can reduce anxiety levels greatly. We've talked again about sticking to your scheduled breaks. As regards your team Zooms, the idea that I had as regards the team Zoom is to maybe have a movement Zoom class. Certainly I've been involved in lots of these lunch and learn sessions and going into businesses, and you know, a lot of these sports and social clubs in the larger companies would have these month-long or year-long fitness and kind of challenges that they would have all year to try and get their employees to be physically proactive and fit and trying to get them moving. And you get points for all these different things that you might achieve during the week or month. So a movement team Zoom call is another good way to actually try and build in a little bit of fitness and a little bit of fun. And again, something different, you know, rather than just all this COVID talk and everybody trying to work from home in the best way they can. Different connections with your teammates, you know, funny hat Zoom calls or bring your kids to the Zoom call. All of these things are becoming the norm now, but why not a movement team Zoom call?
So this is the link between mind and body as well. It's you know, you're trying to move around, but it'll also help with your mental health.
It absolutely is huge, because actually an awful lot of, you know, stress and anxiety that people feel, it manifests physically as pain. And we see that an awful lot as physiotherapists. So if you can keep yourself on an even keel and try and manage your stress levels, that will actually mean that you'll feel much better in your body and your muscles will be more relaxed.
Excellent.
Okay, so now we're moving on to some of the patterns of injury that we're seeing during this pandemic as a result of people exercising. And of course, we know that there are a myriad of reasons why everybody should be exercising. If it was a pill, the doctors would be prescribing it to everybody. It's literally the best way that you can manage your health and reduce your risk of comorbidities. So what we're always looking for is to give people the reasons why they should be exercising if they don't already know them. So I'll throw out a few now for you. And there's a really nice infographic on the next slide if you want to bring that up as we talk through it. So it really helps with your mood. We know that when you exercise, endorphins are released, there are chemicals released in your brain, and they actually make you feel better. People hear about this runner's high, but the more you exercise, the more you want to exercise. And it gives you a really positive change in your state of mood, and it really helps you to reduce stress in your body. It's a vital, vital reason. And particularly during an uncertain time like now with this pandemic, you really want to be trying to make sure that you manage your anxiety levels. And we know that exercise will do that. And it really helps to decrease levels of depression. It's really vital in that space. As regard, from my point of view, from a physiotherapist point of view, we love exercise because it improves lean muscle mass. It maintains flexibility for people. It makes people move better. It improves your cardiovascular fitness. So your ability to handle challenging situations during the day is really, really improved by how much exercise you do. So if you decide you want to take a longer walk because it's a beautiful sunny day, you know, in a few weeks' time when we all get back together, if you want to play an active game of football with your grandkids, if you want to, you know, just go out and walk up Ticknock Hill because it looks beautiful up there and you want to see the view. If you're physically fit and you have good cardiovascular fitness, you will be able to do that comfortably. If you're not fit, something like that is going to be beyond your reach, and you'll find that you won't strive to do these things. It makes a difference then to how you feel overall when you think, oh, well, I'm not really able for that, I won't do it. Again, that will have an impact on your psychological well-being. From the age of 40 onwards, unfortunately, folks, we start to lose our lean muscle mass. And that means that the bulk of our muscles starts to get smaller. Now, we are very interested in this from physiotherapy point of view, because this actually is a risk factor for falls, for fracturing bones, for breaking bones, and for osteoporosis, which is something that we have a lot of in Ireland. So it's important to note that when your muscle mass reduces, you may not know about it because you might look exactly the same. You may actually fit into your clothes just as well. You might look the same in a photograph. But the reason for this is that with declining lean muscle mass, it's being replaced by fatty tissue. So what we are always advising people to do from an exercise point of view is to maintain this muscle mass over the age of 40 by strengthening or doing resistance movements. And of course, the gyms are closed right now, but an awful lot of household chores involve strengthening challenges like gardening, DIY, housework, and even lifting your shopping bags in from the back of the car. So again, a very important point to note. I already mentioned that osteoporosis is a problem in Ireland. So 1 in 2 women over the age of 65 will develop it, 1 in 5 men. So it's not just a female issue. This is for the men as well to take note of. So again, we want to make sure that your bones are healthy, and weight-bearing exercise is vital for bone health. So jogging, skipping, dancing, those kind of activities are really key. It also helps to improve your balance. And again, balance is key when you think about falls risks as people get older. The consequences of a fall and a significant fracture like a hip fracture, it can have a huge impact on somebody's health and independence. So, you know, there are tons of reasons why people should be exercising. But of course, when we're exercising during a pandemic, it's equally important because it gives us this sense of control. We can set out a nice routine of exercise. So our walk before work, our walk at lunchtime, or our cycle at lunchtime, our walk again in the evening, and maybe getting out and playing football with the kids in the garden. So exercising during this time will help you maintain good habits. And for an awful lot of people, it's actually allowing them the opportunity to start some good habits. Now, that comes with a bit of a caveat, because of course, when people start into something new, they need to make sure that they're able for it. So that brings us on to what we've been seeing recently, which is an increase in the number of running injuries. So an awful lot of people are out there, they're trying to push for personal bests with their 5K times and their 10K times. And, you know, if they might have been planning on doing a marathon later in the year, now they're trying to think, well, how can I keep my training up? So we are seeing a lot of people pounding the pavements out there and reigniting niggly Achilles tendons, swollen knee joints, painful hips and backs. So it's important to think about a few things when you want to think about exercising and increasing your running tolerance. So the first thing is to think about your past injury history. So you must make sure that you've resolved any previous issues you have. I see a lot of people who tell me that they have knee pain when they run, but then they stopped running and then their knee felt perfect. But then they started running again and they're ringing me because the knee pain is there again. But the problem is they have never solved that problem that developed initially. So you must make sure that any rehabilitation that you've been given for a running injury, that you have completed it. And that any exercising you're planning to do during this pandemic, that you make sure that you're not going to reignite an old injury. That's really important. So the body needs gradual buildup of tolerance to exercise. If you do too much too soon, it's a really easy way to get injured. Another thing to bear in mind is the surface that you're training on. So again, depending on how lucky you are with parks around you or whatever, within now the 5K limit that we have at this stage, grass is much more forgiving than concrete. So try to run on grass if you have a park within that 5K. If you're on the concrete, you just need to be mindful of that, again, that's a harder surface. So you have more shock up through your leg. So again, if you're prone to an Achilles problem or a heel pain like a plantar fascia pain, you're going to be more likely to ignite that if you're pounding the hard concrete pavements. So think about that when you're planning your training. The other thing to bear in mind is sloped hills, cambered surfaces. If you're always running the same loop every day, you can get an imbalance in your body if there's any camber in that surface. So alternate your loop and go clockwise one day, anti-clockwise the next. Little easy things that you can make, you know, easily added into your routine that will make a huge difference to injury prevention. Also think about looking for Couch to 5K apps. Just be mindful of your training and how you plan it. And don't forget that recovery is a really key part of your training and has to be planned into your training in the same way that you plan a strength and conditioning session or your running session. Another word of warning is on the online classes. There are tons of them out there and it's fantastic. Everybody is out there putting out content, and some of them have great content, some of them not so great. But what you need to look for is you need to make sure that you're not doing something that will aggravate a past injury. So repetitive squats, repetitive lunges, lots of burpees, they're fantastic for burning fat, but they're not so great for middle-aged knee joints. So if you're not used to that level of activity prior to this whole restriction period, you must make sure that you gradually build your tolerance for that again during this. So we don't feel our age. We're not realistic with our levels of fitness in general. We all like to think that we can run further than we can. We all like to think that we can run around and train like we did when we were in our 20s. But you must be realistic with the age that you're at that. And you must also bear in mind that often during the 30s and 40s, they're the most sedentary times because we're at home with children, we're working long hours trying to develop our careers. So to go out and be a sedentary person and then suddenly try and pound the pavement and challenge yourself to a 10K in a short period of time, it's not realistic. Don't throw yourself into brand new classes, 2 or 3 classes a day. You know, think about how your body needs to be mobile and strong enough for these new movements that you're looking to do. Okay, so with that in mind, you need to consider, are you fit to exercise? So we've mentioned past history of injury, unresolved recent injury, really key points. And if you're not sure, please pick up the phone and call us. People often, they'll talk to me and they'll say, well, I didn't want to bother you with that question. Please bother us with any questions that you have as regards your fitness, as regards injuries. This is what our entire job is to help people with injury histories, with unresolved injury. We want to help you get back to the point where you can do that 5K or you can do that marathon. So ring your chartered physiotherapist. And actually one benefit of us being online now, it's interesting, we used to just deal with people in the local district. Now I'm getting calls from people from Cavan, from Mayo, from Cork. We're actually going nationwide now that we're online. So ring your chartered physiotherapist. If you have a local physio that you deal with, phone them. They're dying to hear from you during this period of time. If you don't have one, please call Total Physio. We'd be dying to hear from you. So the next couple of slides are going to be the strength MOT. So I want you to pay attention to this and think about whether you're able to do these exercises or not. If you're planning on running a 5K, you need to be able to do these. If you're planning on running a 10K or more, you need to be able to do these really very easily. So if we look at trunk and core strength, you can see 3 pictures there. So the plank push-up is the girl on the bottom in the blue top. So we talk about planking and holding the plank. We're much more interested in a dynamic plank. So actually, up in a high plank position as she is there, come down onto each forearm, one forearm, then the next, and then push back up onto one hand and then back up onto the other. So you're coming down into a low plank and then pushing back up into a high plank. And if you can do that 20 or 30 times, you have no problem with the strength in your core. But it's a much better way to gauge how strong you are than just holding a plank for 30 seconds. The side plank is with the girl on the green mat here. Again, you need to be able to hold that for a certain length of time initially to develop that initial strength. So typically we'd look at 30 seconds, but then we make it dynamic. The top arm comes up to the ceiling, her top leg lifts up towards the ceiling, so she's in a star, and then we can bring in rotation, so the top arm rotates right in towards the floor and back up again. Again, dynamic core strength. We look at the runner's arabesque movement, which is the girl in the orange bra top, and again, that's a really good one that challenges your balance. The supporting leg has to be strong. Her hamstring there needs to work hard. Her buttock muscle on the right is working hard. Her left leg is out behind her. She needs to be able to maintain that position using that left buttock. And again, it's a really great challenge for somebody who wants to run, for somebody who wants to hill walk, even if you want to walk long distances at a good pace. This runner's arabesque is a great test for your body. Moving then into our legs, we look at reverse lunges, really vital. Most people don't like them with good reason. They make the legs burn, but they're excellent exercises. If you want to walk long distances, if you want to hike up Ticknock Hill, if you want to go running, you must be able to reverse lunge. And in fact, it's a very, very important point. It just really builds the whole kinetic chain, which is what we call the buttocks and the entire leg. It's great for overall strength. Again, squats, we talked about that earlier as regards a movement break, 15 of those at 11 o'clock and 15 of those at 3 o'clock, you'll find that you'll really build the strength in your legs again. So there's some quite nice easy ones. There's a few more now. The buttocks are really the powerhouse. We always look at the buttock muscles with people with back pain and people with any leg injury. Doesn't matter whether it's in the knee or the big toe. We always look at how strong the buttocks are because that's really where you get your strength from. Even if you're serving in a tennis match, over 50% of your energy transfer is coming from your legs and your buttocks. So a single leg glute bridge there, you can see it's the girl in the blue top. So going up and down there, trying to lift your pelvis on that straight leg, it's tough going. If you try it at home and you're not used to it, your hamstring is going to cramp like Billy-O at the start. But it's a really good one to build up that strength. And if you're looking at doing a 10K, you need to really be able to do 25 to 30 of those on each side. And again, looking for the difference between the right and the left, we often see an imbalance between both sides. Single leg squat then, is quite self-explanatory. Again, we look at the control of the knee so it's not falling inwards and it's not wobbling as you come up and down in the movement. Really, really key for runners. Hip abduction is the movement on the bottom where you bring your leg out to the side away from the midline. Again, a really nice tester of buttock strength, but a little bit easier than the first two. We see a lot of people struggling with ankles, with an old history of maybe ankle sprains when they played football or hockey. And then when they're in their 40s and they're trying to run, they're finding that they're getting stiffness and pain around the ankle, which can then also translate into shin pain or calf pain. So the knee to wall test you can see on your screen there, that's quite a nice handy test to check how flexible your ankles are. And it should be the same on each side. So where your big toe, you can see the gentleman's left big toe there is about 1.5 inches away from the wall. It should be the same on both sides. If one side is very flexible and the other side isn't, you need to do a bit of work on that before you start to exercise. Heel raises going up and down on the toes are key for runners and for really anybody who wants to exercise in any way. You need strength in your calves. We talked about reducing lean muscle mass from the time we're in our 40s onwards. The calves get very weak from the time we're in our 40s onwards. And we see an awful lot of people pulling their calf muscle when they run too far, if they run for a tennis ball, if they do some sudden movement like kicking a ball with you know, just for whatever reason, they might go out and kick a ball. If they're not used to that and their calf muscles aren't being trained specifically with any strength and conditioning exercises, the calves are quite vulnerable. So heel raises are a big one, particularly in middle age. Our balance is very important, and I'd like you all to try now as we all listen to this. I'd like you to stand on one foot, make sure you're safe, that you're not going to fall over a lip on a carpet or anything like that, but stand on one foot and see can you balance there for 30 seconds without putting the other foot down. That is the basic minimum of balance that you should be able to achieve. So try that there, one leg balance for 30 seconds, and if you're not able to do it, that's something that you'll need a little bit of help with. Okay, so when we move on now to our final bit, one of the things that stress people out is whether they are actually injured or not. So I already mentioned that we're always delighted to hear from people. And if you're not sure whether you're injured, please call us. But the next couple of slides will go through the various points that you can say, well, that ticks a box for me or not. So if you have pain affecting your normal daily activities, and it's not going away. So pain that's not settling within 2 to 3 days. We all know the burn of going out to do an exercise class or going to the gym when we haven't been in months and we feel sore for 2 days afterwards, particularly the second day after with this DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness. If you've been working the quads, you can't go down the stairs because of it. That always settles within about 3 days. If it's lasting longer than that, that's a sign that you may have an injury. If it's affecting your normal daily activities, like getting up and out of your bed, getting up and down from your chair, if you're sitting at work and then when you try and get up, you're not able to because of pain, or you struggle to because of pain, they are signs of injury. If you're waking during the night because of pain, again, that's definitely a sign of injury, so you need to call us straight away. Acute trauma is very easy to spot because if you put your foot in a hole and sprain it, if you slip and fall, again, you know that that's happened. So that's less of a conundrum. But a lot of these insidious, gradual onset niggles that people get, they're not really sure whether it's a problem or not. So if you're in doubt, please give us a call. We talk about red flag symptoms, and these are particularly important to mention actually, because again, people always worry, am I bothering somebody with these symptoms? And the stress of that can actually make people very worried and actually can affect their sleep at night as well. So red flag symptoms are worth paying attention to. So by those, I mean night pain that wakes you, that you have to get out of bed to ease off before you can get back in and get back to sleep. High fever and joint pains, very important to take note of. A recent unexplained weight loss, so more than 10% of your body weight in the preceding 3 months is what we look at. Any loss of control in bladder or bowel bladder or bowel function, excuse me. Weakness, numbness in your leg or in your arm, or if you have foot drops. So that means that if your foot is kind of, you can't lift your toes up to walk and you're stubbing your toe as you try to move. They would be the classic red flags. And in that instance, you really need to call your GP. If somebody rings me with those symptoms, I'll be sending you on to your GP. So then what do? The key is to get help fast. If you've got pain and it's not going away, please ring us, please bother us. If you're not sure, ring your GP. If the GP deems it to be a physio issue, they'll send you to us. If we speak to you and we deem that you need to see the GP, we'll send you to the GP. If the pain levels are high, we may need to get you to the GP for medication if needed. And the key is to get an assessment, get a diagnosis, and get a treatment plan, which you then must adhere to until you really feel 100%. A big problem we find is that people feel a lot better, but they still have pain on the odd thing here or there. So then they fall off with the rehabilitation. So continue that treatment plan until you're at 100%. That's really the key. So this is probably the most important thing. How do you stay away from your physio? That's what you all want. So prepare your sedentary body for activity. If you're not sedentary and you're already fit, don't do too much too soon when you're trying to increase, to move, to challenge yourself with the next goal. Get fit to take part. Get fit for whatever you're trying to achieve. So the fitness involved for a 5K is very different from the fitness involved for a half marathon. The fitness involved for a boot camp class is very different from the fitness involved with a yoga class. So get fit for what you want to participate in. Don't train, don't run through pain. If you have pain when you run or when you train, stop it and get some help. If you're fine during the activity, but you have pain later that night that goes on for a day or two, and then when you rest, it goes away, but each time you repeat that activity, the pain comes back for a day or two after, that is a sign of injury. Do not continue to train through that. Varying your activity or varying your training, which means cross training basically, is a nice way to work your muscles without putting too much stress on any one particular part. So we talk about cycling as good training for runners. We talk about swimming as another way to train if you're a runner. So cross training is a nice way to keep yourself fit, and it helps with the cardiovascular fitness. Recovery we mentioned, so stretching, getting a massage, making sure that you are well hydrated, making sure that you sleep well. So planning your recovery, which is just as important as your strength and conditioning sessions or your running training that you're planning. Put the recovery in the diary as well. We've talked about incomplete rehab. Go till the end. Make sure you're fully right. And if you're in doubt, please call Total Physio.
Jenny, absolutely fabulous presentation. Really, really good. Some really good stuff there. Just one thing you might comment on is sometimes it's difficult to stay motivated, and we might feel a little down, having a bad day. We have, distractions. How flexible, how forgiving should we be of ourselves?
We should be very forgiving of ourselves because we're dealing with a crisis that is unprecedented. None of us in our working careers have ever had to deal with this. And we've all worked, well, a lot of us have worked through the recession 10 years ago, but this is entirely different. This is affecting every single sector, and it's affecting every single person. So if you have a bad day, what you need to do is think, right, well, I'm not being productive at the moment. So what I'm going to do is park that and go out for a walk. Decide to read that book that you've been wanting to read. If you're interested in music, sit down in front of the piano and decide to play something. Whatever your interest is, if you're having a bad day, try and just say, okay, I'm going to do something that I enjoy now, so that you can improve your mood, elevate your mood, and then you can look back on that day and say, well, you know what, it wasn't all bad. So everybody's going to have a different reaction to this, and some people will be doing very well initially, and then they'll find that they have a bit of a roller coaster or a bit of a wobble. So we're all up and down through this. The key is to be kind to yourself and recognize that when you're having a good day, isn't that brilliant, and you can be productive and do everything you need to do. But equally, if you're having a bad day, don't sweat it. Just say, look, I'm going to do something now that I enjoy, and I can always come back to this tomorrow.
Sorry, pointing back to those habits that you mentioned earlier of getting up at a consistent time, building these sort of routines into your daily life, and some of those exercise routines into your daily life will make a big difference.
Absolutely. I mean, think about if you drag yourself out of bed, drag yourself in front of a screen, and then you have to get on a Zoom call and you think, oh my God, I look wrecked. You're going to feel worse for that. Whereas if you get up out of bed, have a shower, put on a clean shirt, and then you brush your hair, when you look in the mirror or you look in your Zoom call and you think, you know what, this is fine, I actually feel much better. And I think that's a really key point, because when if you're not looking after your appearance, if you're not looking after those basics, having your breakfast at the right time, making sure you feed yourself, these are the key things that allow you to feel good and allow you to feel balanced, and they create this sense of routine. It's not normal for us to drag ourselves out of bed and sit in our pajamas to work. So why would we do that now? So you need to try and have some discipline in your life still. And that's not to say you can take a day off and have a pajama day or a duvet day, but it's not to be every day. The key is to make sure that you try and keep some semblance of routine as much as you possibly can. If you're looking at Monday to Friday, and then do whatever you like at the weekend.
Yeah, get your mindset right. I love running, Jenny. I absolutely love running, but I'm of the habit of, it's a bit of a pain or my knees at me, of just, push on through.
Okay.
Am I to be forgiven, or am I being bold?
Well, you're just going to find that the more you try and keep on pushing through, if there's a niggle that's developing, you will find that it's not going to get any better. So if you're a runner, you must bear in mind that just running will not make you a better runner. You also have to be strong enough for that running. So those strength MOT movements that I talked through, they're really key. So if you like to run, you should see what you're like and go through each of those movements. And if you have deficits on one side compared to the other, for example, when you test your balance, that's something you can improve on, which will make you run better. If you cannot do a lunge to save your life because your knee is sore, then you shouldn't be running, you should be calling Total Physio. So you can actually go through those steps and see how strong you are. And then depending on whether you love to run 5K mark or a marathon sort of distance, you need to have more strength for the longer distances. So you need to make sure that your body is prepared for that run, and just running isn't enough to prepare it.
Excellent advice. Now, you were a physiotherapist to the Irish women's soccer team.
I was.
Oh, great. And I'm thinking of everybody who has young children and teenagers out there, and they may have been playing football, and they may have been playing Gaelic or hurling in their local club.
Yeah.
Um, how do we keep them ready for games when they do commence?
Well, I mean, the big problem now is that nobody's getting any match practice, of course. So, I mean, if you look on Twitter, certainly the team that I was involved with, Katie McCabe is the captain, you'll see that they're all posting little videos and snippets of themselves exercising. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to encourage everybody and motivate everybody to keep going. And they're in the same boat. They've never been through anything like this either. They're used to a team environment. They're used to training, and they're used to, they're used to everything being in a major routine, from training, how they eat, how they recover, and of course all their matches then built into their schedules. So what you need to do is you need to, again, just think, well, what am I trying to do here? You're trying to keep up the interest and the love of the game, whatever game it happens to be, football or anything else. And ideally, if you have some grass nearby, you need to be getting them out and actually continuing with the ball skills. So we live near Marley Park here, and my son and daughter, every evening we cycle to Marley Park and we boot the ball around, and we practice penalties, and actually all of our touch has improved in that time. And we're practicing keepy uppies. We're trying to do things like that which keep the kids interested. It's movement for us, it's fresh air for us all, and in fact it's time we wouldn't normally get to spend with our kids. So we're trying to enjoy that side of it as much as we possibly can as well. So if you have somebody at home who's chomping at the bit to play sport, you play with them and try and practice. You can practice their touch, you can practice scoring goals, they can be the keeper, they can practice taking penalties. It really, all you need is a bit of space on a football or whatever your sport might be. But we're all in the same boat, and the more we keep engaged with what we love, the more we'll be able to take all the positives out of this period of time.
Yeah, I think the important thing is keep their interest up, and in whatever way you can, support that. And there's plenty of resources out there. Just we've had a couple of notes in here from people, questions around where they can access or buy furniture to work from home. I know BizQuip and Cater Hire have been in touch with us to say they may be able to help you. So BizQuip or Cater Hire in Sandyford are ideal for that. Jenny, fantastic. These resources will be up on our website at Sandyford Business District. On the screen now are Jenny's contact information. You have Facebook, you have Twitter, you have Instagram, and you're even on LinkedIn. So people can get in touch with you very easily there, and info at Total Physio, and I'm sure you've phone numbers on your website as well.
Mark, can I just mention one more thing?
Please do.
Just as regards all the people who are cocooning, who now are allowed out since Tuesday for walks. Actually, there's a very good, I'll send you the link so you can put it up for your listeners. There's a very good series of one video with a series of exercises. There's 8 exercises on it. So for anybody who's over the age of 70, so any of your relations or family members, or indeed yourselves, if you're in that category listening today. So it's a very, very good way to just make sure that you're targeting the right muscles for balance, for your buttock strength, but it's appropriate for the cocooning age. So I will send that video to you, Mark, and you can put that up as well. So again, to try and maintain people's strength and mobility throughout this period. And even if you're getting out for your walks now, these would be good exercises to practice at home over the next few weeks.
Yeah, many thanks. I think it's really important that we remember those that, not just the kids, but also those grandparents and parents that we're taking care of and trying to help cocoon at the moment. So I really appreciate that, Jenny. Jenny Branigan of Total Physio here in Sandyford, thank you so much. I'm sure you'll get plenty of calls
Thank you,
from
Mark.
our listeners today. Just to remember, we have a series of webinars over the next few weeks. Next week, we'll be covering off business supports and tax, because there's been some updates in that area from the government. Thank you so much for joining us today, and from everyone at Sandyford Business District, please keep safe, keep healthy, and do those exercises.